What is going on, family members? Welcome back to another special edition Cruise Island, day 4 of Off the Ball Network's Super Week. Yesterday, Jelani knocked it out of the park with the biggest Super Bowl what ifs. If you did not go check that out, if you didn't catch it yesterday, definitely go check that out after we're done here. It was definitely a good show. A lot of interesting things that were talked about. Really made you open your eyes and really think about how many plays are made in a game that end up being extremely irrelevant because of the way that the game played out. Today we're doing top 3 Super Bowl halftime performances. I went back and watched a good amount. I didn't go all the way back to I don't even know when the first one was. And then after we wrap that up, we're going to hit the top 3 storylines heading into Super Bowl Sunday. But before we do that, I got to bring on my guy, Mr. Mo Murphy of the Up in Flames, with a dope new logo, dope new intro. Mo, how are you doing tonight?
Bro, I'm all good. It's kind of tough. Like, you about to get on this show and come to find out Russell Westbrook is traded. And, like I said, every storyline is taken away from the fact that this is Super Week, Super Bowl. So focus has really been around the NBA. But, definitely glad to really talk about the Super Bowl and just be able to focus on football.
Yeah, definitely glad to have you on. But yeah, you're definitely right. It's we were just talking about it before we came on that it's weird that we're basically done with Wednesday going into Thursday, and it really doesn't feel like Super Bowl week. Like you said, the main focus on the NBA trade deadline is tomorrow. Um, Obviously, goes without saying, huge shout out to LeBron James. Um, Last night breaking the all time scoring record, passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. My daughter actually woke me up in the middle of it because I'd put it on, accidentally falling asleep. She had woke me up to cuddle, and I was like, "Sure, you can cuddle, but we're gonna watch this game." And I kept telling her like, "You're watching history tonight," and she's like, "No, it's not. It's just basketball." And I was like, "One day you're gonna understand, and
The,
you're gonna be able to
disres-
say
the
that."
disrespect.
Right. I
The
was like, "You're gonna be able
disrespect.
to say one day that you watched LeBron James break the all-time scoring record," which, in my personal opinion, is that's we talked so much about how Kareem's record was going to be unbreakable, was unbreakable, and you have to think that you think of what LeBron has done. Not to make this a basketball show, but I've been one of the biggest LeBron critics of my entire life. I've recently retired from that conversation, but I do still give the dude his flowers when it's warranted. To average 30 points a game for 20 plus years, like it's just, you want to talk about his longevity, you can make that a point of the only reason he scored this many points in totality is because of his longevity. Dude's still averaging 30 points a game even now at 38 years old. It's not like he was a few hundred points away at 35 and he's like staying in just to hit that mark. Like, this dude is producing average. I don't know what his numbers are this year, but I know he's in the high 20s, right?
He
For
averaged
this
30.
season
He averages 30 again.
at 38 years old. Um, but yeah, let's get into it though. Again, Super Bowl Sunday. Derpy said he's not watching the halftime show. Why not? I, I'm really curious as to why not. I'm 1,000% interested because
We
Rihanna
could
is.
get into that. We could get into the halftime show this year for a second. Like,
Yeah, let's do it because Rihanna is like Haley's Comet. It only comes around. She only makes music. She's only making music once every however many years. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since we've gotten an album from her. For her to come out and do the halftime show, she released a single for Black Panther 2 a few months ago. So I'm definitely excited. I'm hoping this will lead to another Rihanna album. Um, but are you excited? I would imagine you're excited for it.
am I mistaken? Is it two people performing at this halftime show?
Not that
Am
I
I
know
tripping
of.
for? So it's only Rihanna. Wasn't at one point we thought it was going to be Taylor Swift? Did it switched? Because I know Rihanna's in it. So if it's just because I ain't gonna lie, at one point I know there was a possibility of Taylor Swift. So I haven't necessarily paid attention to the halftime show, but as far as who was doing it, I knew Rihanna was doing it. My thing is this: is like she could go one of two ways, and she can be exciting. Is bro, she can either perform her old hits, and I mean she has hits, bro. Like she has hits, as male as female, like the Ponder replay, things like that. Like they're gonna resonate with you. They had a they were hot at a certain point in time in your life where it takes you back down memory lane, or she could perform a whole bunch of new songs we've never heard, and you could tell us why Rihanna's back. Because I mean, what the conversation is always Rihanna or Beyonce. Essentially, you always, when it comes to rappers or R&B artists, pop artists, whatever it is, you always put the best against the second best, and whoever you think. It's always been the Beehive versus Rihanna. But I mean, if it's just Rihanna, I mean, I'm definitely excited. I think she may perform a certain song and bring, somebody out. They always have like surprise guests for a
Yeah.
certain song that's featured on something. So I do think this could be a big deal. And then I don't mean to make it like this, but bro, it's always nice when a minority performs. Like when you bring the culture to the NFL game, because we know at All Star Weekend for the NBA or in the NBA final, but All Star Weekend is kind of where you put on the show as far as just like the Super Bowl. At All Star Weekend, NBA is a lot more cultured essentially. So when the NFL kind of dives into that side of the culture, I always appreciate that as well. And not they do keep it diverse, but when they dive into this, like you bring Rihanna on the stage, like they know the NFL know what they're doing too. Like,
Yeah.
bro, Rihanna is a very sought after person that we would love to see perform. She's had a baby, all the things like that. She's kind of been living her own life. And so it's like, bro, they know, man, it's going to be one of the biggest halftime performances in a while. Like, just like they wanted to be iconic with LA last year and let Dr. Dre take over and kind of create a halftime show. Like, they know what they're doing. So they're kind of bringing Rihanna back out. So many people are excited. There's a bunch of people who don't even care about the Super Bowl. They're going to watch the Super Bowl to watch the halftime show because it's a polarizing figure like Rihanna. So, I mean, I'm definitely excited. Like, because I want to know, like, is she going to play the classics or is she going to play some new stuff? Like, I'm definitely intrigued to know because, hey, man, I might not bump Rihanna loud in the car, but a Rihanna song come on and I get jiggy with it.
Yeah, that was interesting. Patrick Mahomes, they asked him the other day, or might have been yesterday, his favorite song of all time, and he said Umbrella, Ariana and Jay-Z. And I don't know if he meant it as a joke because he looks like the kind of person whose favorite song would be Umbrella by
Who said it
Rihanna and
again?
Jay-Z. Patrick Mahomes.
Doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't. It really doesn't.
It
You know,
doesn't
that's
surprise me.
now if it was Jackson Mahomes who said it, I'd be like, oh yeah, 100%.
I'd be
100%.
all in. I'd be all
Yeah.
in on like, yeah. Doesn't. I
But
think Jackson would say Ponder replay. Sorry, didn't mean to take shots at Jackson, but his would probably be more Ponder replay, a little more upbeat.
yeah. But I think if anybody does come out, because that's been the trend the last, let's say, man, almost a decade, is they bring out guests. Beyonce, when she was a performer a few years ago, she brought out, Kelly and I'm blanking on her name, Kelly Rowland and
I don't forgot her name.
the other
Yeah,
girl in Destiny. It was basically all the Destiny's
she brought
Child.
out Destiny's Child. Yeah,
Um,
just keep
and
it simple.
then yeah, and then which is funny because when I was on the Vincent, we had a joke with one of our chiefs that he was the third Destiny's Child out of all of our chiefs in the office, and we used to always call him by that name, um, because he was irrelevant, and now just goes to show
That's
nothing
crazy.
against her,
That's
but
crazy. I thought you was
that's
going a
just
whole
funny.
different route in this message because he
No,
was irrelevant.
he was the brand new chief. Like he was getting he was learning how
He
to
was
be a
getting his
chief.
feet wet, and it was like, yeah, bro, we
Yeah,
ain't rocking with you
compared to
right
the other
now.
ones, it wasn't even though we didn't rock with him. He just we knew you could tell he was new.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
anyways, but and then even the year Beyonce had Destiny Child, I think Bruno Mars still came out that year.
That was
Bruno
when they had
Mars
that dance
had
battle. Top 10.
yeah, Bruno Mars had Red Hot Chili Peppers on his show.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's common practice now to bring out guests. So I would think if anybody, me and Jay-Z, he made a lot of songs. I don't know if he'd be willing. I mean, he did basically in write a whole song, not a whole song about dissing the NFL and the Super Bowl halftime show, but in one of his lines in that song, he makes a reference to it. So I don't know if he really would, but that's one of the first names that come to mind.
Well, since
But
that got brought up, real quick, I'm sorry. Since that
no,
got
no, no, go
brought
ahead.
up, give me 3 songs you would love for Rihanna to perform. If you can think about it. Like, I know that's on the spot. We weren't even prepared to really talk about this halftime show, but since like we're not somebody said they're not watching the halftime show, I just wanted to dive in a little bit.
That's a good question. I think if Jay-Z did perform Umbrella, because I do think it's
Uh-huh.
one of her better songs, but I can't.
I'm gonna tell you, call people gonna pick on me, they gonna call me what they want. Bro, I want Rihanna to perform Unfaithful. Like, I just want her to get on there and just I don't want to do this anymore. Like I'm gonna feel that in my soul and I'm gonna sing along with it. So if I could pick one song for Rihanna, I want to hear "Unfaithful," and then maybe bring Drake out. Maybe think about bringing Drake out and perform like
It,
"What's My Name" or something. That'd be
that
kind of
would be
tough.
dope if she could bring Drake out.
Yeah, it'd be kind of tough. But "Unfaithful" is number one on my list. If she performed that, she would forever be the GOAT. And I'd be the one person that I would argue Rihanna over Beyonce. And you can argue whatever with me. She pulled out my favorite song by her on the Super Bowl halftime show and what I think is going to be an elite Super Bowl in the first place. And it make my weekend. I might not wake up Monday. Might sleep into Tuesday because she performed "Unfaithful."
Well, if Mo don't show up to work on Monday, we know why. So let's get into it. I was gonna do originally top 5. I brought it down to 3 just for time purposes. Like we're already almost 15 minutes into the show and haven't even started this list. So and I feel bad because there's especially in the last 15, 20 years, there's been a lot of great performances in the halftime show. But we're gonna start with number 3 on my list, and these are completely objective. Like this isn't some scientific. It's just what I like and what I remember and what I watched over the last couple of days, mainly today. Number 3, oh my God, Bruno Mars, his solo when he was the actual halftime performer in Super Bowl 46, 47, 40, oh, it was 48, I believe. Seahawks and Broncos, the one at MetLife Stadium. I'm a huge Bruno Mars fan in and of itself, full disclaimer. So I was already going into that halftime performance with high expectations, and he not only met, but he also exceeded them. Number 2 on my list. This one was tough because I didn't want recency bias to play a part in it. But last year's Super Bowl halftime show, and this could just be because born and raised in Cali, West Coast. I grew up on Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, and obviously Kendrick came up in the last 15, 20 years. Listen to a lot of his stuff. I think the way they brought everything together was a great Super Bowl show. But number 1, I have to give it to, and this may surprise a lot of people. Gotta give it to my man, Michael Jackson. I went back and watched him because when I looked it up, I was looking at a lot of different lists to kind of get a gauge of where to start. On everybody's list, number 1 was
Number
Prince.
one is Mike Jack. Yep.
No, number 1 is Prince.
You know what's crazy? That's on my list. Prince is on my list. I remember that one and when he performed. I'll get into that. But yeah, I remember.
I'm
Yeah.
really interested because I don't remember the performance itself, which is weird because that was the
That was in
Patriots Giants.
2007.
Wasn't that the first Patriots Giants Super Bowl?
I'm not good with all the numbers. I see the years. Like I got my list based off the years, and I remember it was in 07.
Oh no. 07, so it would have been the 06-07 season. That was the Colts and Bears in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So I did like that when he sang Purple Rain, it was legitimately raining. But other than that, half the songs he played weren't even his songs.
Hmm.
I felt some type of way about it. I could just be nitpicking because I really wanted Bruno Mars to be up on this list. But I just when I went back and watched it, I just wasn't really feeling that performance. I didn't like it. Now Michael Jackson's from the entrance to the performance to singing "We Are the World," that entire Super Bowl performance, top tier, in my opinion. There has never been and never will be anything like it.
Yeah, I mean, so here was my thing. I guess like all of mine is recency bias based on what I remember. So number three is Prince. And I'm not gonna lie, I think for me, it was like because growing up, like, I listened to Prince, I obviously listened to Michael Jackson. So, but it was to be able to see how iconic Prince really was. Like I remember watching Super Bowl. I was what, 12, 13 years old. I think it was 12. Yeah, I was 12 at that time. But I remember like watching it with my parents. I think we had a Super Bowl party. So seeing like all the OGs I was around and like when he performed Purple Rain, like what it did to the room. Like I remember what it did to the room, and it was like you felt like the how much of an icon Prince was, even though somebody like me was too young to understand it. So that's where it's like it gave me appreciation. Like because growing up, everybody knew who Michael Jackson was, and pretty much if you grew up, I'm not saying everybody didn't know who Prince was, but if you grew up with black people or anybody black in your family, like you knew who Prince was. But at the same time, like you just felt like there would always be those conversations of Michael Jackson or Prince and da da da, and I'm like, bro, it can't be Prince because my generation rocks with Michael Jackson way more, and his music is so timeless that Michael Jackson is one of our goats. Like we would say Michael Jackson is the goat, and we weren't necessarily there for his career, like in his prime and all that, in the 90s. I was just born in 95, but I understood who Michael Jackson was. But it gave me a different appreciation. It gave me a different appreciation for Prince at that time to realize that like you're just witnessing an icon kind of go out on his last like goodbye. Like that was essentially his last goodbye, kind of the last time you were really able to see him perform. And it was basically like a farewell to a goat. And so I remember that. And so that's why that sits with me. Number two, Rob, it wouldn't be me if I wasn't ignorant. I don't remember what Super Bowl it was, but come on, man. When Janet Jackson popped the titty out, man, like let's just get with it, man. Like let's just dive into it because everybody's thinking it. Like when Justin and that's created like a beef for forever. Like Janet Jackson hated him from then on out for that, but like because I know it was a dress, what do they say, a costume error. Uh,
Wardrobe malfunction.
yeah, wardrobe malfunction. There you go. But let's just be honest, man. Like a young bull knowing who Janet Jackson was, still thinking like, man, she's one of the older women that still got it. Like that's one of your like at the time, because I'm young, I'm not even 30 yet. Like that's my old woman crush. She's out of her prime, but she's still that. And then like, bro, a little boy seeing the titty, man, come on, man. Like, how doesn't a young boy at that time appreciate it? And then number one, bro, for me is like I mentioned some iconic ones, but I'm actually with you on the recency bias. Bro, come on. Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, and then Kendrick Lamar, and you brought out 50 Cent. 50 was in no ads, right?
That's
Like
right. I
he
forgot
was,
about 50.
bro, he was in no ads. Nobody knew. He wasn't in the promo for the halftime show. Nobody was expecting 50 Cent. It wasn't even talked about that there was a possibility that 50 Cent was coming. There was no rumors. Like this was a well-kept secret that on top of this lineup, I'm going to add 50 Cent, which brought the East Coast flavor of this era. Now, I know Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre are older, but hit Eminem, 50 Cent. Like that was the East Coast. At first, I felt like Eminem didn't belong because I'm like, seems like you're making it a West Coast thing, but then you brought Mary J. Blige, and I'm like, okay, just all the people that Dr. Dre basically came up with, helped bring up or whatever. And then so to add and surprise everybody with 50 Cent in LA, like you made LA. Like you took two of the GOATs out of Los Angeles, California to headline a halftime show, and they didn't disappoint. They performed things that you wanted them to perform. 50 Cent comes out of nowhere performing in the club. Like like that. It was just iconic, and that could show my age or whatever. But yes, recency bias. But bro, that one was pretty iconic. Like for people like you or my age, we're in the same age
Yeah.
bracket. That was iconic for us. And then like obviously Kendrick Lamar is one of the goats of our era, of people our age. He's one of the greatest, probably a Mount Rushmore of our era. To bring a Snoop Dogg out, like I just thought it. And then they all kind of performed the songs you would want them to perform, and they kept it hood and cultured. Like they didn't, lighten it down is what I'll say for the atmosphere of the Super Bowl and kind of who the majority of the crowd is. They kept it LA and kept it hip hop cultured and street. And Eminem came out in the Cardinal threes and 50 Cent came out in the tank top and was like, look, I got so much money. I don't care that y'all talking about me getting a little bit bigger. Snoop came out cripped up from head to toe. Like, Mary J rocked Mary J. Dr. Dre came out, billionaire fly, like we expected him to be. Like he always carries himself billionaire fly. So they didn't lighten it down for the atmosphere. They brought out an iconic performance, and so I got to salute them for it. And that meant that just meant everything for guys that in my era were some goats and people that you listen to. But you still could have left Eminem out. But that's neither here nor there.
Nah, I think Eminem was a perfect addition. I'm a huge Eminem stan, anyways. So that's just
I think Eminem for another day.
Whole nother podcast.
Eminem discourse.
But I think Michael Jackson being the sole performer at his show, I think is what kind of set it over the top, because it was first advertised for the Super Bowl for the halftime show last year. It was Dr. Dre, and Dr. Dre by himself, yes, he has hits, but a lot of people kind of did question how can he carry a Super Bowl at a halftime show. And then you started hearing everybody else that was going to come out with him, Mary J, Snoop, Eminem, and then you're like, okay, cool, this is going to come together. It should come together nicely, which it did. Michael Jackson, whenever you have time, go back and watch it from start to finish. His entrance all the way into the very end is a true Michael Jackson performance, because a lot of times halftime shows with these artists, they're not only condensed, but they're almost to a standard watered down performances of themselves. Michael Jackson, I feel like he tried his best to encapsulate an entire Michael Jackson concert in those 10 to 12 minutes that he had on stage. That's honestly why that put his performance over the top as far as Super Bowl halftime shows. As far as the Janet Jackson one, look, like I said before we got on, I went outside to play football during halftime, so I'm not one of the fortunate kids of our generation.
The horn dogs of the generation.
Yeah, to see Janet Jackson titty on live TV. And it kind of set it not only caused a beef between them two, but it caused a beef between pop music and hip hop and R&B and the NFL, because after that you had some of the worst halftime performances you could have possibly had. Like, you had big names, but you had big names for, let's call it spade a spade, for old people. Bruce Springsteen, the Rolling Stones, U2. Look, I'm clear I'm not black, but I was raised on hip hop, on R&B, shit like that. So that was the music that I wanted. I didn't even know who U2 was. I didn't know who Mick Jagger was. The first time hearing about U2 was when Apple put all their songs on our fucking iPods that one year. That whole album on our iPod.
Yeah, they put the whole album, like buying a iPod that year came with the U2 album.
Yeah. Which I never deleted it. I was like, maybe I like this music. I didn't. But like, again, Bruce Springsteen, Rolling Stones, like, yeah, those are cool for the 45 to 60, 70-year-olds at the time. I bet they loved it. But us at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, like, we had no interest in the halftime show.
Yeah, we didn't. Like, yeah. Rolling Stones meant nothing. I just thought that was a magazine.
Right.
Like, I didn't know that was a group.
It was bad.
You'd have been better off bringing out Aerosmith.
You should have just not done a halftime show.
Yeah, I would have rather Steven Tyler came out there. Didn't he perform one year?
I think he did one year.
One year.
I'm pretty sure he did one year.
Yeah, because not once I said his name, I'm like, I swear I remember him standing on that stage, and I wouldn't just watch a concert on TV of Steven Tyler. So it had to be like it's either at the college football national championship or the Super Bowl. Because other than that, I'm just volunteering to watch Steven Tyler concerts. But he is a performer, so
Trying to look it up, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he did perform at least one halftime show. But moving on to the top three storylines heading into Super Bowl Sunday. One that catches my eye this year is obviously the Kelsey brothers. You know, it's I think it's cool when siblings go up against one another in huge sporting events. It doesn't get any bigger than the Super Bowl. You got Travis Kelsey for the Chiefs tight end, obviously Jason Kelsey, who he is probably my new favorite player in the NFL when he tried to dance with Miles Sanders. I think that he looked like he dead ass looked like a toddler trying to dance. Like when you put
yeah.
music on for a 1 year old and they just stand up and start just moving their body, that's what he looked like. And it was dope. I loved it. I love that for him. Another one that I literally realized it yesterday when I read it was that Andy Reid's going up against his old team in the Super Bowl. I That completely flew over my head. I was yesterday years old when I realized it. But there's some pretty good storylines. What's some that stand out to you, Mo?
The elephant in the room, the biggest storyline, the first time in a Super Bowl that two black quarterbacks are facing each other. Like it goes to show the way the NFL has come. I think a year or two ago, an article was written, a big time article about year of the black quarterback, and when you had Russell Wilson, Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, like whether they're mixed or not. Um, but like this is iconic, right? And then I've been able to hear like last week Doug Williams talked about it. So to be able to hear it from a perspective of the first black quarterback to ever win the Super Bowl, in his perspective, like it's historic in that sense. And it's kind of no matter how many black quarterbacks we got in this league, we still never thought like because even when you get to talking about the cream of the crop, not all of them are up there. So you don't have the expectation for all of them to be in the Super Bowl. Like, yes, we've seen Russell Wilson in the Super Bowl. We don't know if he'll ever make it back to one now. So now you start looking at teams and the possibilities of two of them matching up against each other. And you look at Dak and you're like, don't know if he'll ever get to the Super Bowl. You look at Lamar Jackson and be like, I don't know if the Ravens are good enough to get to the Super Bowl. And then you start talking about all the hope is on the Josh Allens, Joe Burrows, Justin Herberts, Trevor Lawrence. So you just think like it's so hard to be able to get a historic matchup. And so to be the first time, that two black quarterbacks or a mixed quarterback and a black quarterback are competing against each other and to know that somebody gonna win it for the culture, but I know, one side, the side of the culture don't really love Patrick Mahomes the way they would love to see Jalen Hurts win it. I think he's turned himself into a media darling, a fan favorite. How can you not root for this guy? His story's great. He seemed like a great person. He's great with the media. He's a smooth, cool dude, smooth operator. The women love him. Like it's one of those for Jalen Hurts. And then, Patrick Mahomes kind of has a little, I guess, stain from the way his family has acted the past couple of years, but they've also been humble and quiet and just kind of in the background. And I'm sure he had something to do with that. But still, I mean, and then I guess another storyline is like we have a totally different conversation if Patrick Mahomes win this game. Like if the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes win this game, it ignites a whole different conversation and it reignites a GOAT talk conversation. And I'm not saying if Patrick Mahomes wins this game, he deserves to be in the conversation of being a GOAT, but it fully more ignites the conversation that we may be witnessing the next greatest quarterback of all time. Like we know it's Tom Brady. I'm a believer that it won't take 7 Super Bowls to pass Tom Brady. I think it'll take 4, maybe even 5 if you set that standard. But 7 was outlandish, and you can say for all the reasons why. But we really might be watching like if he wins this, he's hosted 5 AFC championships. Him and Andy Reid. We might be even talking about this could be one of the greatest quarterback coach duos of all time as far as the production and the success in the first 5 years. 5 AFC championships, going on your 3rd Super Bowl appearance, starting 2-1 in your first 3 Super Bowl appearances. He's going to win 2-time MVP. Like he's probably going to win the MVP, so it'll make him a 2-time MVP. So it already starts building the case in your first 5 years. A guy who hasn't even hit his prime yet, and he's already got a strong case to be. He could retire right now and be a Hall of Famer with 2 Super Bowls and 2 MVPs, and leader in pass yards, I think once for sure, maybe twice. Leader in touchdowns once or twice. Then playing the underdog role, like even after all that, like he was counted out this year by a lot of people going into the season. A lot of people didn't think the Chiefs would be here because the loss of Tyreek Hill was so big on he's going to take a step back and he doesn't have enough. And we don't know if he's really that kind of dude. He's always been benefited of having nothing but weapons around him. What's he going to look like now? And he just leads the league in passing yards, passing touchdowns, going to win an MVP, and is playing in another Super Bowl. So any doubts that you had towards him, and I'm not saying nobody thought he was going to be a good quarterback anymore, but you thought like the Chiefs were going to take a step back, and instead they just continue where they were. AFC Championship at home, 1 seed, Patrick Mahomes still clear-cut, the best quarterback in the NFL, undisputed at this point. Win or lose, I think it's undisputed, but undisputed up to this point, and he could just further stamp that by winning this Super Bowl. I do think that's a big, big deal. But I also think Patrick Mahomes winning the Super Bowl could make him a villain. I think it could turn him into a villain if he wins this Super Bowl.
Yeah, me and a buddy of mine, when we were watching the AFC Championship game, he had made a comment like that. If a lot of people don't want to see Patrick Mahomes win anymore, I said, "Oh yeah, he's becoming the new Brady." Like we're kind of just like, okay, yeah, Patrick Mahomes, he's winning again. Good for him. He's done it already. Give somebody else a chance. But yeah, we're very, very likely. And I do hate to say this, but I do think the fact that him being black is going to make that narrative or that thought just magnified that much more, where people are going to hate him more because he's always winning.
I
But
think people
it's
love him a little more after seeing his dad, though. I think after like I'm smoking on that Joe Burrow. I think it made a little bit of love. Like I think it got the Mahomes family and Patrick Mahomes a little more in the good graces because we knew his dad was black and all that. But like he gave that, oh, that's that cool drunk uncle vibes.
yeah,
Like my son did it again. I'm
that's
smoking on
Uncle
that
Pat
Joe
right
Burrow.
there.
Yeah, like that's Unc. Like now he deserved the name Unc. We're
Yeah,
gonna want to see more of him the same way we want to see like Ja's dad and Uncle Shannon Sharp, like that kind of respect of like being an OG. But I'm telling you that line, I'm smoking on that Joe Burrow. That's gonna live forever if he wins this game. I'm telling you,
yeah,
it's going to.
yeah. So my number three storyline, and I thought it was really cool at the time, the fact that Jerome Bettis could and eventually did go on to win a Super Bowl in not only his final season, but in his hometown of Detroit, Michigan. The career that that man had up until that point was one of the best. When I was in junior high, thinking about playing high school, I was a little bit on the chubbier side, and I was like, "Oh, I really want to play running back, but I can't." And my uncle at the time was like, "Bro, just look at Jerome Bettis," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I can play running back, being a big dude." All right, bet. So he was one of my favorite running backs growing up. But just seeing him be able to again win a Super Bowl, um, finally win the Super Bowl, you know, go out on his own terms, go out a champion, and to do it on in his hometown in front of his family and friends, I think is great. It's one of my favorite storylines, even to this day. Number two, the Harbaugh. Um, this one, I was on my first deployment. I thought it was really cool. I think this is when the NFL started coming out with scripts to get the two Harbaugh brothers
There we go.
battle against each other. And one of the better Super Bowls we've had, post second half. First half wasn't, you know, eh. But once after the lights went out, Niners got their mojo back. They made it a ball game. I really was hoping and thinking we were going to get more of those,
Mm-hmm.
over the next 5 to 6 years. But eventually, we know that um, John, Jim, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. I forget which one is which. One of them went to Michigan. The other one could be coaching for his job this season, depending on what they're able to do. I know it's crazy to think, but I mean, it's been 2-3 years since they made the playoffs. It's a possibility. Number one, I think it's obvious, is Patriots 2007 2008 season going into the Super Bowl at 18-0. trying to become the first team since the 1971 Dolphins to complete a season undefeated, the first team ever to go 19-0. Because when the Dolphins did it, it was a 14-game season. Patriots trying to go 19-0, going up against a team that they had beat, I think, literally 4 weeks earlier. I don't know if it was the last game or second to the last game of the season. They played the Giants, beat them pretty handedly. Giants were the 5 seed. Nobody really gave them a chance. Eli Manning was still unproven at that time. They had a good defense, but it wasn't a great defense. It was probably one of the better defenses, but nobody thought the Giants defense was one like, we're not talking 85 Bears, 2000 Ravens, nothing like that. 2002 Bucks. It was a solid defense with a surefire Hall of Famer and Michael Strahan there. And Giants came out and they got hit. They hit back. It was for the better part of the game. It was a heavyweight boxing match, very strategic. Nobody really ran away with the game. Everybody, and I just realized I did not have this up the entire time. And then Eli Manning, the incredible throw, gets out of pressure. They have him by the collar, pulling on his jersey, thinking he's going to get sacked, was able to get away, throws the ball up, and David Tyree makes one of the, if not the most incredible catch in probably NFL history, for sure Super Bowl history, to be able to catch the ball on your helmet, stick it to your helmet, is one thing. But to have Rodney Harrison pulling down on you and to still hold on to it, I think is a feat in and of itself. The Giants should put that picture right there as a statue outside MetLife Stadium. David Tyree should forever be enshrined in the New York Football Giants Hall of Fame, Ring of Fame, whatever they have.
Aren't his
He needs to
gloves
be on there.
Aren't his gloves from that game in the Hall of Fame?
They are. They are in Canton.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, trying to go 19-0. Obviously, we all know they didn't do it. Except for some kids in Africa, they think that the Patriots went 19-0, which is really dope. I've always thought that was really interesting. All the losing shirts from every Super Bowl and every NBA Finals goes to Africa. So there's kids running around in a 19-0 Patriots undefeated Super Bowl shirt. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, 100%. That is pretty dope that they do that. Like, because you can't resell it, so why not give it to people who could use it?
But which is one of your most memorable storylines?
One of them, Tony Dungy being the first black head coach to win the Super Bowl. And I know, like, I've harped on that for kind of both. But at the same time, because it's one of those, like, the story at one point was like black people can play whatever but quarterback. Then it was like, okay, Doug Williams wins the Super Bowl. He gives the black people hope. All right, guess what, though? We're still majority white at the position. What you guys can't do, though, is get up in that upper echelon. Y'all can't get in that front office. And y'all can't get on that sideline and be a head coach and win championships. And then here comes Tony Dungy. And like, now we can do that. And like, when you think about it, like, it was around the time, then who was the president that, like, the next year? Like, we got the first black head coach. The next year we get the first black president. So then it's like, okay, it's an anomaly. And then Mike Tomlin comes along and does it. So it's like, it started a thing of hope of like, okay, everything that is said can't be done. Like, all right, y'all might have got one. Y'all might have gotten there before because Donovan McNabb had gotten there as a black quarterback. But y'all will get there, but y'all won't win the big ones. Doug Williams did it. Then Tony Dungy does it at the head coaching level. Which kind of, between him and Mike Tomlin, I think really essentially amps up the minorities. There should be more minority head coaches for the simple fact there are Super Bowl champions as minorities at the position. So I definitely think that's one. Another one, I guess it more go in one of the greatest Super Bowl performances, but at the end of the day, it's going to live on as one of the most famous Super Bowls of all time. It'll be something this generation will never forget. We will talk about it. We have never let this team live it down. 28-3. Let's just be honest. 28-3. The game is over at that point. Nobody's ever given up that big of a lead in a Super Bowl. Rob, you and me were on the boat. We was on deployment for that Super Bowl. So, and I've told this story many times, and you was there, so you can attest to it. I think you was there in 2017, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can attest to it. Most segregated Super Bowl I've ever watched. Every white person was rooting for the Patriots. Every black person was rooting for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm telling you, and you can attest to it. That did happen on the Carl Vinson in 2017. But once it was 28-3, it was like if you had bet on the Falcons, every black, give me my money. I need my money. We got it. This is it. Bye bye, Tom Brady. And then for him to come back, that storyline in itself, that Super Bowl in itself, is going to live on forever, especially because Tom Brady, continued on and basically became the GOAT. And that's going to be one of his most iconic moments of his career. So it'll be something like, as long as you know that Tom Brady is the GOAT, that's a moment you always point out to be like, make his GOAT case. Like every guy, when he becomes a GOAT and you consider him the GOAT, you have something that you can point in his GOAT case. And that one, or the Bucs winning the Super Bowl, would be like, that's where I was like, if I didn't have him over Joe Montana, that's where, like, that's the moment I knew Tom Brady was the greatest quarterback of all time. And then my last one, there's a bunch of ways I could have went, but I would go with the Harbaugh brothers though, like competing against each other, like like you said, like when everything you said about that, I mean, when brothers get to the highest stage, like, and I always think about it, like we got kids now, so I think about it from the parent perspective, like who do I want to win? Like, do you have is there a favorite son that dad always clicked with John while mom always clicked with Jim? So I'm rooting for Jim and he rooting for John, and you got to rep two different teams, and like Mama Kelsey going through that this year, right? Like,
Yeah.
And there's always, parents will never say there's a favorite, but you click when there's multiple siblings. Some click with one, the others click with the other. That's just how it is. It'll always be like that. But when it's two sons, like them mama's babies. So she's gonna be the one that's emotional and gonna have the hard time of rooting. Dad just gonna be like, whoever wins, wins. Congratulations and suck it up, chump. Like, for the loser. And I would imagine the Kelsey dad probably gonna be close to the same way, but like the moms in that situation is like, torn between the two. In one sense, I'm gonna be celebrating the one, while emotionally I have to be there for the other. So it's always like two brothers being able to battle as head coaches, and then we get to see it, this year with two brothers playing against each other in the Super Bowl. And Mama Kelsey has already shown the type of jersey she's worn it before, half Eagles, half Chiefs, which is always pretty dope. But at the same time, like I feel bad for her when that clock hits zero, or when the realization, if there's a point in the game where the realization is one son's gonna win and one son's gonna lose, because she's gonna go down there and celebrate emotionally with one while hugging and comforting the other, and that's never a easy situation when it's two sons. So I always look at it from the parent perspective, like what would I do if them was my kids?
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, those are pretty much my storylines.
I would imagine the dad's just gonna be like, "Yeah, those are my boys. Those are my genes. I made them. They came from me."
Like them, my boys. One of them gonna win. I'm gonna be able to celebrate one of them winning, one of them losing. I'll be there for them, but you'll suck it up, bro. You'll toughen it out, like, because that's just how men. That's how men are. You'll be all right.
Yep. But yeah, this has been a fun show, Mo. I really do appreciate you coming on. It's fun, talk about these. It's so crazy that we are now Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days and a wake up away from Super Bowl 57, and then we're not going to have football again until August. I mean, we got the draft, which are definitely going to be ramping up. Draft coverage pretty soon once the Super Bowl wraps up.
Yep.
But it's a surreal. I know you still got basketball. I'm not a huge basketball person. Yeah. Again, Mo, thanks for coming on. Go ahead and tell the people where they can find you and what projects you have coming up in the future.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be doing a show tomorrow. Obviously, we were talking about it kind of going in. My guy LeBron became the all-time leading scorer. I'm definitely gonna have to talk about that, my excitement for that, kind of talk about some of LeBron's top moments. That is one of my favorite players, so I definitely have to give him his flowers and show him love on Up in Flames. It only makes sense. On that same episode, y'all have seen it. Rob, you hinted towards it and said it, but I also, kind of be showing off my new logo. The new intro will be on there as well. I posted it so people got the sneak peek, but just being able to put it and put the stamp on it that it's official on the show. Always exciting when you kind of elevate your show, in itself, you switch your logo. Like when you elevate anything that you do, these are our babies. So it's always great to be able to do that. Like I said, show will be recorded tomorrow. I don't know. I don't usually like to go live immediately. So I won't say it's live and because I don't know a time yet, depending on what time I get off work. But yeah, that's what I got in the works. Draft capital is ramped back up. We'll all, the network, we always dive deep into the NFL draft, so we ain't got to worry about that. We go 100% get into that. I don't care whose platform it is on, honestly. Whoever's down to record, just let me know and we'll talk NFL draft. That's coming up. I kind of debuted my top 10 quarterbacks on Draft Capital last week. Talked a little bit about, we're going to talk about the running backs and wide receivers next, talk a little bit about corners and linebackers as well. But all this is going to be ramped up. Mock drafts coming. Everybody's going to be, anybody who wants their hands in it, going to be invited on Draft Capital. Anybody who wants me to have their hands in it on their show, as long as I can make it, I'll be there. But as always, bro, it's always nice linking with you. And yeah, appreciate everybody for tuning in as well.
Yep, especially the trolls. The trolls are always most fun to have on. Ken, we're looking at you. Y'all already know where you can find me, FSC Pod on Twitter, Football and Chill Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Tomorrow, Thursday, let me have my notes right here. Tomorrow is the troll himself, our resident Canadian, our governor of Maple Syrup Land, Kenneth Control is going to be talking about, we're basically doing a loser episode tomorrow, best performances in a losing effort, things of that nature. I don't know what time, but definitely be on the lookout for that. Saturday, got a CU Sunday format. If you've ever watched any of our CU Sundays, it's going to be that type of format.
And I got Friday.
You do have Friday?
Yeah.
What is best to
I know
never
I got
win?
Friday. Yeah, best to never win. I know I got Friday. I just forgot what I was doing. I was like, I'm going to prepare for that tomorrow. So,
yeah. So, Monday, Friday, and then Sunday mornings, you do a quick little morning, like a NFL countdown and Fox NFL pregame type show before the game. I don't know if we're going to do a post game. That's TBD. Got to get with the rest of the network to do that. Mark your calendars, April 27th. I know it's a bit away, but April 27th will be the third annual Off the Ball Network NFL draft coverage, where most of us, if not all of us, going to watch the first round of the draft together. We'll see live reactions because at the end of the day, we analyze and we watch sports as a collective, but we still have favorite teams. And the last couple of years have had some pretty dope reactions to draft picks of our favorite team. Mo, we don't let him live it down. When he was mad that they drafted Micah Parsons. I think he feels better about the pick today than he did 2 years ago when that pick was made. My Jamin Davis pick, I think, is even my Jahan Dotson one. I was really mad about it. And I think it's funny, not to get off on a tangent, but the Jahan Dotson draft pick, I feel bad for being mad about it. Because that time I was already kind of, feeling it. And I thought Garrett Wilson was still on the board. I didn't realize he had gone after Chris Olave. So I do feel bad about that. Jahan Dotson obviously has worked out, but definitely tune into that. Once again, he's Mo. I'm Rob. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.